Hello. Welcome everybody to the college lecture series. We are so glad that you guys could make it. Today we have Lisa Grant, and our esteemed colleague who will be presenting on the title is Adirondack Matriarchs and Epistolary Legacy.
Masterful in the Art of Guilt, and on January 21st she wrote, "I cannot tell you how anxiously I awaited a telephone call from my girlie. It seemed I could not give up, knowing that it is the last for more than one night before the Easter vacation. If you are ever a mother, you will know all about those feelings, but of course, I wanted you to do whatever you would rather. But I never had a thought, but that you would want to come home if you had the time off. I guess you will enjoy yourself better there. It is all right. Have a good time and be the best girlie in the world." In early February, Grace has a rare moment of levity when updating Ruth about her brother's lack of etiquette. "The boys had quite a spell of schoolwork last evening. Chaz had some too. They all sat around the gaslight and were real human-like. Seems as if all act crazy more than ever when you're home. But then, over the weekend, they are hilarious and no studies on their minds. Ted, of course, is always quiet. But while they are clean boys and take up more of the low-down habits, we can put up with their noise and pranks, can't we, dearie?" It's easy to see how different the standards were for the boys than for Ruth. On April 6th, she mentions Dexter, the pianist that Ruth had spent some time with, and gently reminds her to preserve her reputation. "I'm glad you had the letter from Dexter, and it would be nice to visit Rutland in company with some nice girl. You surely would have a very pleasant time. But manage it as you think best, my girlie is rather young yet, but she seems to have pretty good ideas in regard to the propriety of things, so I trust her to think everything over well. Then do whatever she knows in her own mind is for the best for a good, pure reputation. I feel she is getting a good start in that line." In the early 30s, a slim second to morality and etiquette was education. In the depths of the Adirondacks, Ruth had a non-traditional education in the hands of her father. As I read her account, I couldn't help but think how Margaret Fuller-esque her education seemed on a small-town scale, as she recalled, "I started school when I was 6, and Dad taught me all the way to high school. I made 8 grades in 5 years." But it wasn't just her father that made education a priority. It was a family endeavor. In one of the earliest letters, Ruth's youngest brother, Charles, sent her his graded math, grammar, and spelling tests with hundreds written at the top of each. Roughly 8 years old, he attached a brief note written in cursive. "Dear sister, how are these for school marks? I know you would like to see them. I hope we can come see you Sunday if you can't come home. Lots of love, big hugs and kisses, your little Charles." While away, Ruth began struggling academically early on, which prompted Grace to try a bit of bribery. And by the end of September, she makes very clear the expectations when it comes to her father's purse strings. "We'll let you decide yourself about the dresser and get whatever you want and where you want to, only do it as to not delay your arrival home longer than is absolutely necessary. And your short jacket also. We'll leave that to you. We will get the clothes you want as long as your daddy doesn't kick. He's done very well so far. Perhaps I can let Daddy read this letter and he will feel better. Some of them last week I did not show him. He spoke of it, sure, you know. This governs his pocketbook to such an extent. Never mind, it concerns mine too as well as his, and he shouldn't kick if I don't." Ruth continued struggling to balance her newfound freedom with schoolwork. By early November, Grace scolds, "I believe my girls could do better in their tests, and I believe that they have the right spirit to do better now. Those resolutions sound good to me. Stick to them and be just as fussy as ever about who you go out with. If one isn't fussy about that, then certainly they aren't in the way of gaining admiration and respect from the very nicest people." And by mid-November, she had shifted motivational strategies. "So, you have a new subject. I guess Mr. Compton thinks maybe you play some, or you would not have to stay up late to get your lessons. Well, you have to play some, of course. All work and no play makes Ruthie a dull girl." Do you like your new subject? And is it necessary for your course? Whatever do you have, do your best. I told Charles in the test at school to try for the very highest marks in the whole school, and if he gets there, he shall have a new toy. He's keeping that in mind. Shall I do that way with you? Guess you would rather have a new dress. So in the true spirit of mother-daughter bonding, she follows up with a letter of covert support. I knew my darling girlie would see where the trouble was with her marks and do all she could to remedy it. So glad you can notice improvement in so many places. You can make good, and I know, sweetheart, and make your teachers proud of you. If you do that now, in the future, Daddy need never know anything about Mr. C's complaint. Whatever it was that inspired Ruth to turn her grades around, she'd done so briefly by the beginning of December. Grace writes, "Another nice letter today and such good news. You certainly made Mama proud to do so well in your economics test. Keep right on, sweetie, and you will come out on top of the heap, I just know. Just do not let well enough alone and try for better. That's a good girlie. Get your lessons all caught up and every night before play. Then there will be no getting behind or trying to catch up. Easier all around." Then the next day, a little motherly advice. "My girlie finds this is the only way to succeed and show them all what kind of material she's made of, not one to continue in a mistake after learning where it is and how to remedy. You're doing very nicely in your business law recitations. I'm so glad. And I know you and Mary will come first every time in room inspections." That is a very good and very important thing to practice. Tidy habits are a great help all through life. I hope it will not take too much time from study periods, but you can adjust matters, I suppose. Grace's expectations for each child in the area of academics is remarkably individualized. In the last letter sent April 14th, she confides, "Today and tomorrow the boys have tests. I wonder if you do too. Ted and I thought perhaps the several quizzes you were having was helping to prepare for them. Jack says he knows he won't pass, and he says if he thinks that way, maybe he will pass. I wish he would get busy and do the best he could, and he would get the marks as good as Ted. He can't seem to settle down to it. Ted was one boy among 3 girls to make again of 85% during the past year in his work. I saw it in the paper. Well, if Jack only keeps good. We can't compel him to educate himself if he doesn't see it that way. Perhaps it may be better in the end than sending him away to school. He will have his high school work anyhow, and that will be some help in the future. Maybe we will learn some trade, teach him some trade after a few years." We see from these letters Grace was no average citizen herself. She was not only educated, but she also helped run the local store and manage the post office in my grandfather's absence. In addition to her matronly duties, she even included a sort of chapbook in one of the letters. October 1st, the letter titled, "Scandalous Tales of Scandalous Ruth." And they were written, as you can see, on little scraps of paper and stuffed in the letter. There are 4 brief volumes, but for the sake of time, I'll share the end of the 4th one, called The Box Party. There was to be a box party, and the hustling city of Athol was hustling more than usual. Ruth E. Cameron, a prominent belle of the city, was worrying, as usual, about what to wear. The day before the party, she flew to New York in her airplane, the Coquette, and purchased a new evening gown with a dipping skirt. The whole dress contained about 2.5 yards. She also bought a handsome pair of shoes with 4-inch spike heels. The next evening, she went to the party. When it came time to bid for the boxes, there was a great rivalry over Ruth Eloise Cameron's box between Carl Kenyon and Willard Baker. Finally, the 2 gentlemen got in a fight. Willard was knocked down, and Carl, grabbing the box, and Ruth fled. The cover page for each volume bears the name F.E. Risch. And although the handwriting is hers, I'm unsure if this is Grace's piece of creative fiction under a pen name or if she was sharing the work of another. Either way, she wanted to present it to Ruth in her letters. Whether as a cautionary tale or an inspiring one, we'll never know. I mentioned earlier that Ruth was aware of her role and the expectations that came with being the eldest and only daughter. On September 24th, Grace makes sure that those expectations are clear, as is the sacrifice being made for her. She writes, "Think my girl pretty lucky all around. Poor, lonesome mother is the most out of luck, but while her little girl is happy and getting some things to help in future to make life easier, it helps me to bear the separation most of anything, but I tell you, it is like taking my heart. The boys are rather tender-hearted toward me in my sorrow. They help me quite a bit. One of them wipes my dishes each night anyways." Of Ruth's father and brothers, she writes, "Frank was to have one larger room in the attic used for the boys' football and other sports. Wouldn't that be lovely? Be like living under the music hall during a game. The boys want each a bedroom, you know. I guess that is about what we will have. Wouldn't have taken room from the hall for attic stairs only for that." Grace tempers trying to treat Ruth as a young adult capable of making good choices with a no-nonsense mother tone. We all know the tone, if we haven't used it ourselves. "I do not mean, sweetie, that your time there should all be put into studying classes, but you are the best judges yourselves. And if you cannot have your 3 nights out a week, take one night and divide your study hours. Remember, the short time you are putting in there is only a dot to prepare for your whole life. Then after you've gotten all possible out of that period, there's worlds of time ahead for pleasure and fun, along with whatever your daily duties may be. What you get there in your business course is to help you to a life of light work and short hours and not drudgery, as you would have to appreciate the effort on our part in sending you there now, little girlie. Do not think I am saying these things to scold you, but I am trying to think things out since receiving your letter today. We will talk it over when you are home. I want my little girl to do so well there with all the others, good as any of them." On March 16th, a bit of amusing random advice. "Now to close with lots and lots of best mama love, be my bestest girlie, and don't go out with expelled boys." It was very random. I was particularly amused when a letter in April reveals Grace's secret tactic for handling my great-grandfather in the area of spending. She tells Ruth, "My table came yesterday. Everything seems to be all right. And today's mail is $15 going to Wilworth, so that's settled. Dad asked me where I got it and how much it cost, and I gave him a guess, and he guessed $24. I just couldn't tell him that it was $35. He would have had a great big fit, so I didn't tell him." Reading through Grace's letters, I discovered a healthy dose of feminist pride and motivation. She wrote, "It comforts me a lot to read of your different services attended, those privileges you never had a chance at. You get some good, clean sport along with the rest. Leave it to a bunch of girls to get ahead of a bunch of boys anytime. They can think faster and more of it." In a letter written in November, Ruth's social life has become a concern. Grace couldn't be more clear about her daughter's objective. "I know my girlie can get everything all caught up if she works good and hard. Just let all the fun and dates go for a while. Get in the good graces of Mr. Compton again. Keep up while you're there, and if you have to work like a nailer. It's not pleasant, I know, but it's all in keeping you, and it will be a good honor to be one of the prized students of the college. We will have our lovely new home and take lots of comfort with it. Just be my good, sweet, bright girlie that you are and can always be, and all good things will come your way, and Mama will help all she can. You will be driving the car next summer vacation, and think of the good times with that alone. I know some of that stuff is dry, but get help from your teachers and dig, and you can handle it. Don't let them say you are capable, but will not. I feel sure we shall see better marks in the next tests." Now, if that isn't a pep talk, I don't know what is. This year, away at Green Mountain Junior College was to be Ruth's last. I came into possession of my grandmother's report cards long before I was aware of these letters. And it wasn't until reading the letters that I was able to understand why she went home in 1932, never to return. When we would talk about this time, she simply said that she was needed at home. Hoover was advocating for self-reliance, and families were bracing and banding together with another presidential election on the horizon. A few years later, Ruth would marry her classmate and first husband, Reginald Lanphier. The marriage didn't last, but Grace had taught her daughter the art of self-sufficiency, the discipline of good work ethic, and the love of learning. And that was enough to see her through an incredibly rich 90 years of living. Before I open up the floor for questions, I'd like to circle back around to the genealogy of the Loveland family from 1835. Inside, the inscription reads, "To all persons, whether living or dead, who have in any way contributed to make the name of Loveland respectable and respected. These volumes are sincerely inscribed by the authors." There can be no doubt that Grace and Ruth have contributed respectively to the Loveland line. In a prefatory note, John Bigelow Lovin directs his future generations, writing, "The preparation of the Loveland genealogy for publication has been wholly the product of my leisure hours, and it shows in marked degree what may be done with spare moments of time. I cannot forbear in this connection to call the attention of the younger members of the Loveland family to the value of spare time. From the very nature of your occupations, you must have much of it at your command, and a wise use of it may be the key that will give you success to the domain of thought and treasures of the mind, and fit you to take prominent places among men and fill desirable and lucrative positions in life. All that distinguishes one man from another in this world may be explained by the way he uses his time, especially his spare time. Whatever be his station or following, as he uses his spare time, so will he achieve success. The doors of science, literature, and art will swing wide open at his magic touch, and like Elihu Burritt, while striking sparks from an anvil, he will be forging a name for the ages." Now, according to the Central Connecticut State University's website, Elihu Burritt was a blacksmith turned academic, and, quote, "For several years, Burritt lectured throughout New England and about the joy of learning. He then turned his attention to humanitarian causes that made him famous: the abolition of slavery, the dignity of the American working man, and the cause of world peace," unquote. I've taken the liberty of bringing the purpose of the Loveland genealogy up to the 20th and 21st century standards, and that revision sounds a little something like this. "All that distinguishes you from another in this world may be explained by the way you use your time, especially spare time. Whatever your station or following, the way you use your spare time will influence your success. The doors of science, literature, and art will swing wide open at its magic touch, and like an Elihu Burritt, while striking sparks from the anvil, you can be forging a name for the ages." As progenitors of the Loveland line, Grace and Ruth have certainly earned a place of honor in our family tree, one that validates the rewriting of John's preface. Ruth introduced me to culture at an early age with our long conversations about literature, trips to local and not so local museums, the New York City Ballet, and the sharing of local and family history. My grandmother was a remarkable woman, filled with quiet humility. Therefore, she was never one to boast about her accelerated education or the privileges it afforded her, if only for a year. While transcribing these letters, I had to remind myself of the patriarchal community in which they had been written. In the rugged terrain of Athol, New York, where living off the land meant exactly that, and in a time before electricity and motor vehicles were commonplace. These letters demonstrate the priority Grace put on Ruth's education, barely over a decade after the 19th Amendment was passed, giving women the right to vote, and even in the most remote parts of the Adirondacks, the role of women was being redefined. This past year, my spare time has been spent transcribing, retranscribing, and analyzing these letters. The process was tedious, and in light of my already lengthy to-do list, there were times I questioned why I was bothering at all. Scanning my notes and my research, I searched for the answer. Only when I stopped digging did it surface. There in the epigraph of the Loveland genealogy was the "so what." It reads, Those who do not look upon themselves as a link connecting the past with the future do not perform their duty to the world. Daniel Webster. I was once cynically asked what my English degree was providing for the world. I took this project to fully discover the answer. At this time, I'd like to open the floor up to any questions and thank everyone for coming. Any questions about this project? Yes?
Lisa, how did the letters wind up in Georgia? You said they were sent.
Her oldest son moved to Georgia, and so after she had passed, they were in his care, and over time, they found their way under a workbench there. So that's how they found their way in that direction. Now, in the front here, you can see I have those are the transcriptions that I've done. Those are the letters and the original letters and also the transcribed ones. Also, I put out the bathroom wallpaper with a letter written on the other side there as an example as well. And even I found a textbook of hers that I had had for a long time and was another piece of the puzzle that I had long before I found these letters. It was a shorthand textbook from Green Mountain College, 1931, with her signature on the inside. So that was pretty neat too. Any other questions? Yes.
And so, it would be wonderful to read these letters in conjunction with the daughter's response to her mother. Do those exist anywhere?
I'm not aware that they exist. I'm not aware of whether or not they do. So it was very lopsided. There was a lot of interpretation, and that was part of what took so long as well, because what I wanted to present, I wanted it to be what I was able to verify for certain. And so that's what I chose to talk about. So any of the things, there was certainly a good deal of gossip. There was. It was great. There was some really great gossip. Every now and then a little bit of her humor shone through, but she was Grace was a rather serious woman. Yes?
I think I understood you to say that your grandmother and her first husband did not last a very long time. Is that right?
Right.
She remarried?
No, I don't believe she did,
Okay.
but he did.
Okay, so she raised her children from that union as a single mom.
Oh, my grandmother.
Your grandmother.
Yes, she raised them as yes, that's
Wow.
right.
That's amazing.
Yes, it is. And she did remarry. I had to get my footing here. I was thinking of my great-grandmother. She did not remarry, but my grandmother did remarry, yes. There was another hand up. Yes.
I'm just, because I'm not familiar with genealogy, was Grandma's mother a Loveland? Is that it?
She was a Harris, and the Harrises were an extension of the Lovelands. Let me bounce back here, because I did have the genealogy listed, and I think it shows that connection there. Of course, it's early on in the... There. That's what I believe you're referencing. So we had John W. Cameron married Lois Loveland.
Yeah, so Cameron's mother was a Loveland.
Yes, exactly right. Yes. Clearly, I have some family here also picking up some pieces as well, which is really a great thing. So this is my opportunity to share all that.
Well, David and I remember Grandma when she was considerably later than this, after she had broken up with, I don't know the details of that, but after the divorce with her, with my grandfather. And so that's very interesting, to see what she was like earlier
she passed, I believe it was 1964. I won't tell you when I was born, but it was a little after that. um, so I'd never met her. I'd only heard about her. My grandmother always talked about her with the utmost respect and would frequently say that she raised the four of them when there wasn't indoor plumbing, when we didn't have the conveniences that we have now as parents, and that she never got enough credit for keeping them well fed and clean and taken care of. So that was pretty remarkable back then as well. And she also, while doing that, ran the post office and the little general store. So there was a lot going on. There was a lot going on for Grace, and so she was certainly a rather educated woman. Now, I'm still working on the digging. I'm still working on this process. And so I'd love to find out her education, you know, where her education came from. Clearly, for the town of Athol, you know, it was a pretty outstanding as one of the women matriarchs of that area. So.
I think I remember her saying she had won a spelling bee herself.
She
Prize.
great grandmother did.
Yes.
So
Runs in the family.
it does run in the family. So I've got my work cut out for me to see what I can find. And of course, those conversations we won't, you know, we have no access to, and it's clearly hearsay to fit certain things into the gaps. But it sure is fun to try. So again, if there are no other questions, yes.
The house, where's that house located?
That is located in Thurman, right? Is that right? Next to the town hall in Thurman.
Is it the one to the right? Okay, no one to the right?
Yeah, lots of family history there, lots. Okay. No further questions. I thank you all for coming.
Thank you.